likes being taken advantage of. If you're getting ready to drop a couple thousand on a second-hand fishing kayak, or any kayak really, it'd be your best interest to know what to look out for so you don't get taken to the cleaners. Now, there's a ton of places where you can get second-hand kayaks: Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist. Does anybody actually use that anymore? Anyone? And countless other places. Now, I've got the questions you should ask and the things you should look out for when buying a used kayak. And if you stick around to the end, some effective negotiating tips so you can get that fishing kayak for a steal. Step number one is find a kayak that you really like. But a word of caution here: do a little research on the seller to see if you actually want to do business with this person. I found some really great deals out there, but after a little research on the seller, I decided it was a no-go for me. So decide that for yourself. Step number two, ask a lot of questions. If you're really interested in that kayak, just don't say, hey, is this still available? Especially because I wrote in the description, if you're reading this, it's still available. Come on, people. Be the buyer that you would want to have in order to get the attention of that seller. Here's a couple tips here. Refer to them by their first name. Make it personal right off the bat. Introduce yourself. Say that you're an avid angler. I would love this kayak. Something a little less generic than the boilerplate responses that Facebook gives you. Tell them that you're seriously interested and ask them if they'd be willing to answer a few questions. Simply act professional, and it'll separate you from all the goofs out there who don't know how to enter into a business transaction. Now you're gonna start asking questions. Now, you're not gonna be able to get 15 of them answered. I guarantee you the seller will stop responding to you. So what this means is that you need to figure out what your deal breaker questions are and keep the other ones in your back pocket, so when you go and take a look at it or go to the local lake or pond, you can ask those. All right, I got a list of questions that you should be asking at some point during the deal. I'm gonna rip through them and let you decide which ones are the deal breakers for you. All right, number one, how old is it? How long have you owned it? Is there a warranty? Is it transferable? Every company is different, and sometimes they're transferable and sometimes they're not. Where did you get it from? Were you the first owner? Did you buy it secondhand from somebody else? Has the kayak been exposed to flooding? Just kidding. Have you made any repairs? If you have, please take some photos and show me. Does it take on any water? Sometimes the hulls fill with water and sometimes people don't know why. Well, the reason why is that there's a crack somewhere. There should be no water in the hull after you use it. Is there any damage that I should be aware of? What's included in the sale? Is everything in working order? Do you have a clear title? Are you willing to make a bill of sale? You might be asking yourself, do I even need one? Well, you might not, and you may. You gotta check with your state, because every state has different legislation for this. Other questions you can ask is, how did you arrive at this price? How was it stored? This is important for a variety of reasons. Was it stored outside? Was it stored in the sun? All these things will give you a clue of how well it was taken care of and if it's prone to cracking. So we all know that UV rays over a long period of time over polyethylene will make it brittle. I'm super curious, what are the deal breaker questions for you? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested in reading what those are. Now here we are at the time of the inspection, and it might be a good idea to have all these questions written down somewhere so the fish slaying machine of your dreams doesn't become the fish slaying machine of your nightmares. For the inspection, I would bring a screwdriver with you and also ask the owner if they'd be willing to meet you at a local water source, or if you're serious, after inspecting it at the home, would be willing to take it to a water source for you to test it out on the water. And also it'd be good to ask him to make sure the battery is charged so you can test the electronics. All right, the first thing you want to look for in an inspection is the DIY modification work. Now, don't get freaked out. Fishing kayaks come basically bare. So if you see all kinds of modifications and add-ons, nothing to worry about. Actually, some of the DIY mods are better than the commercially made stuff out there. For instance, I have a DIY keel guard. And these are some of the questions I would ask if I saw one of those on a fishing kayak. Here's my keel guard. I asked what material it's made out of, how it's adhered to the polyethylene, because it's not really easy to get this stuff, get anything to attach to polyethylene, and how's it sealed, how long has it been on there, and how has it been holding up. All right, next what you're gonna look for is hairline cracks and fractures in the hull. Now, what I would do is I take the seat off and everything off so you can look at this and look at the places that are gonna hold a lot of weight. So you're gonna look around where your seat is. You're gonna look along your gear track, especially in the back, because a lot of times people hook up these landing gear and it'll carry a lot of weight. So make sure that there's no cracks around here, a lot of times right in here. And you're just gonna have to really look, put some pressure on it, take a look inside the hull, see if there's any water. If it's wet at all, it should not be wet. If it is, that probably means there might be a crack somewhere. I'd flip it over, the entire kayak over, and check it. It's better to feel a little awkward during the sale than it is to get it home and find out that there's a crack. So there's not a whole lot you can do, and you can try to wrestle that money back from someone. Next, you're gonna look for warps, which might be difficult to see with the naked eye unless you step back and look at the boat long ways. Warps happen when kayaks are stored incorrectly or out in the sun or in the heat, and then they take the form of whatever they're sitting on, and a lot of times will actually warp. So take that in consideration when you're inspecting your kayak. And make sure you flip it over, because a lot of times that's where the warp will be, because that is where the most of the weight of the kayak is sitting when it's stored. All right, next thing you want to check, if you have rudder lines, to check those right there. If you don't have rudder lines, no big deal, but if you do, you're going to check to see if they're fraying anywhere. A lot of times with the older models, sometimes they're made out of wire, and eventually they just snap. So what you're looking for, if they have Dyneema cord, which is what you see here, that's going to be a really good sign for you, because this replacement kit can run $150 plus. All right, now is where you have your screwdriver, and what I do is I go around and check every place that there's a screw. A lot of times what will happen, especially on these track mounts, guys will load up the back of their landing gear, put so much weight on their kayak that it actually strips these things right out. So you want to make sure that you're not looking at a screw that's just sitting there and actually stripped out. So you're gonna have to test it and make sure it is in fact not stripped. So I would do that, just check everything, make sure it's tight, make sure it's not stripped out. Once again, it's better to be a little bit awkward in your inspection time when you're getting ready to drop $1,000 or $2,000 on a kayak than it would be to get home and find out that your screws are stripped out, and then you're really screwed. And next thing you're gonna look for is you're gonna flip the kayak over and look for what they call river rash. Now, don't get freaked out if you see a bunch of scratches under here. That's why you're getting a 30 to 50% discount. What you're looking for is the really deep gashes on the bottom of the kayak that will potentially pose some problems for you when it's really deep. Now, if they have a keel guard, which means it's a really good sign, because that means that someone really wants to protect their investment. So I have keel guard here and there. That's where you're gonna see the majority of your river rash. So check those points in the front, up here, and in the back, and on the side, and just make sure there's nothing significant. All right, next we're gonna look for is your seals. Here's some around here around your fishing pole holders. Now, all you gotta do is rub it, and if it rubs off and it's rotted out, well then you know, and it might be a sign of this wasn't taken care of properly, or it was simply stored outside in the sun. So make sure to check all your seals, check your hatch cover, make sure that piece of rubber isn't rotted out, and just make sure those are good to go. Next, you're gonna check the scupper holes. What I would do is take every single one of these guys out, because a lot of times people will use these holes and stick contraptions up in there, and it'll actually be the landing gear for the kayak. So open every single one of these up, look on the inside, and make sure there's no cracks on every single one of these, because this could be a stress point. So I have 8 of these on my kayak. You're going to pull every single one out and check them. All right, next thing you want to check out is if you have foot pegs on the kayak that you're looking at, check those out. Those get a lot of pressure and oftentimes will break. On the higher end fishing kayaks, you're not going to have foot pegs, but just in case. All right, next we're going to take a look at your seat. Now here's the thing, if it's faded in color like the first row of videos at Blockbuster,
why am I so old?
Then you're going to take a really close look at this, because you don't want to end up dropping back into this and the material will be so brittle because it was stored out in the sun that you end up tearing it or ripping it. So make sure to check, make sure this material is nice and soft still, not brittle, and you'll be good to go. And now we're going to look at the pedal drive. Now these things can run $800 to $1,000 just for the motor alone. So what you're going to want to do, yes, you can test it dry, but what you really want is a lot of pressure, water pressure against the gearing in these things. Now, of course, as you can imagine, a lot of grinding sounds are bad, smooth is good. It's normal to have a little bit of play in the gears, but you have a lot of play, this is normal. If you have more than this, then that may be an issue for you. As you can see, it's got to be, if it was really tight, it would just lock up. Another question I would ask if they had the pedal drive serviced, and if they did, was it professionally done or personally done? Here's another weird question. Have they done an oil conversion on these things? It's possible. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it, just so you know what you're working with. All right, guys, accessories matter because they actually add up to a lot of money, especially for a kayak. If you've been looking around, you would notice that basically anything that says kayak on it basically triples in price. So if there is a fish finder, plug it in, test it.
Hey, this thing worked, but I put it away last winter.
It's not a good answer for this. Where's the transducer mounted? Sometimes people stick it down in the scupper hole. Sometimes it's on a transducer arm. Sometimes it's down in the hull, so check that out. Check over the seat risers. Make sure they're not cracked. Make sure they're good to go. Basically anything that comes with the kayak, check it over, taking it out, mess with it. Comes with a kayak crate, open it up, and you're gonna wanna touch every single part of this kayak before you're done. And this stuff matters. You got landing gear, $180. Kayak crates cost you $40 to $60. If it comes with any type of personal flotation device, these things can be $80. Fish grips, if they come with these Yak Attack Pro Omegas, these things are $40 each. And these little Yak Attack mounts, I mean, everything adds up. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing your kayak, because all this stuff adds up. You might be getting a really great value. It should come with a paddle, and there's basically 3 categories of paddles. You get your aluminum shaft and your plastic blade. These are only gonna run you like 20 to 30 bucks. They are your low-end paddles. So if you're trying to purchase a pedal power kayak, your paddle doesn't matter very much because you're only gonna use it like 2% of the time. However, if you're purchasing a paddle powered kayak, this is gonna matter more. Your mid-tier paddles are gonna be your fiberglass shafts with your fiberglass blades. These are gonna run you anywhere from $70 to $100. So if you find one of these, you're good to go. And your high end, it's gonna be your carbon fiber. These can run anywhere from $200 to $350. So if you happen to find one of these that comes along with a sale of your kayak, well man, you got yourself a deal. So you might be thinking, I already have that accessory, I already have a fish finder, I already have that kayak paddle. Well, the good news for you is that the resale value on kayak accessories is really good. So you can just turn around and sell that on Facebook Marketplace or wherever you like to do your business. And now the moment of truth, no one to hold them, no one to fold them. If you feel like something is off or it's too good to be true, things are just not adding up to the price, you might be dealing with something that's hot. It might come to bite you a bit later. So make sure you're not purchasing something that is stolen. Number 2, make sure the paperwork is in order. And 3, trust your gut. If your gut's telling you something's just not right, just go ahead and turn around and walk away. But if you like what you see, it's time to negotiate. And here's some tips on how to get a really good deal. But if I'm selling you a kayak, don't try them on me. They will not work. And number 1, about this is the whole video is about, knowledge is power. Do the market research before you show up so you kind of know what that kayak is worth. No more, pay less is the name of the game here. Number 2, you want to buffer your offer. If you ever sold anything on Facebook Marketplace, as a seller, what you do every single time is you ask way more than you actually want for it, because one of 2 things are going to happen. 1, they're going to agree to that price, and well, awesome, because you just sold it for a lot more than you expected. Or 2, what usually happens is that the buyer comes in and always tries to undercut you significantly. And so you do the back and forth dance and you buffer to your price starting high, you actually likely will land right around the price that you want for it. Next, what you want to do is point out the shortcomings before you make your final offer, especially if you found things during the inspection period that wasn't found in the listing. For example, hey, I noticed that fish finder wasn't working and I thought it was. And if you find multiple things, start to stack them up. Another one of the screws were stripped out, the fish finder doesn't work, there's a lot of play, I'm gonna have to work on that pedal drive. I know you want $1,500, I'm only gonna be able to offer you $1,250. And after you go through all of that, this is the magic phrase at the end of your close. You've gone through the reasons why you think it should offer less or the price is right, and you say, I can only offer you $1,250. Does that seem fair to you? Now repeat after me. Does that seem fair to you? A sales professional recently told me that if you ask that question, does that seem fair to you, at the end of a close, then shut your mouth, the yes rate increases 80%. I'm gonna continue making great fishing content for you, and I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Does that seem fair to you?